text, Bhaja Govindam, is also known as Moha Mudgara. Moha Mudgara means a delusion uplifter. That's another name this text is given. I'm going to just sail through. I'm not going to expand on any of it, please. So Moha Mudgara means a delusion uplifter. The text also instills what is known as a Pratipaksha Bhavana, which is very unique to this text, unlike any other text. The text instills the capacity to look at things, to perceive things from a totally different angle. Pratipaksha Bhavana is the capacity to perceive things from a different angle altogether. So that text instills that. And every verse is known as a Manjarika Stotra. A Manjarika Stotra means a bouquet in a flower. Bouquet of flowers, you know, or a flower in a bouquet. You can take it that way. So every flower has an external fragrance. There's a beauty. From a distance, you see there's a beauty. You get closer to the flower, there's a fragrance. You go deep into the flower, there's honey. I repeat, a flower has got a beauty from a distance, a fragrance when you get close to it, and the deepest bowels of the flower contain the honey. Similarly, these verses are like a flower. When you merely chant, it has got a certain melody to it. When you get close to the scripture, the text, you have certain practical tools or aspects applied to it. But when you get deep into this bowels of the literature, you get the highest truths, the Vedic declarations ingrained in this. So that's what a flower means, a Manjarika Stotra. And the first verse, the text gives, I'm also giving you the reference so you can fall back for your future references. The first mantra verse gives the very theme of the text. The theme of the text is talks of the two motivations, which is Kanchana and Kamini. Kanchana is wealth, Kamini is woman. Now, it talks of the two primary purposes with which people take to acquisition and enjoyment. Now, why people try to take to acquisition? Why is everybody running behind acquiring, aggrandizing and hoarding, wanting more and more? Is because of the underlying fundamental reason is to avoid sorrow, which is known as dukkha nivritti. You acquire for your future insecurities, dukkha nivritti, one motivation. The second is sukha prapti, which is the actual enjoyment. So there are two things. One is to avoid sorrow, you acquire wealth, then you enjoy what you acquired, which is symbolized as woman, or no disregard to woman. And the text very powerfully drills and hammers the truth down in the very opening verse. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamathe. He starts by saying, seek the truth, seek the Govinda, seek the higher. Understand the futility in these two pursuits of acquisition and enjoyment. And he who understands the futility in these two primary motivations will truly embark on the journey of seeking the truth. The third verse, he says, give up your thirst for this acquisition. Mudha jahihi dhanagama trishna. He says, give up your thirst for aggrandizing wealth, I think in the second and the third verse, he says that. Second verse, it talks about give up your thirst for aggrandizing wealth. Instead, create the thought of the reality. And the third mantra, it talks of the pratipaksha bhavana towards enjoyments. He says, don't fall a prey to temptations. Nari stana bharanabhi desham drishtva maga moha vesham yetan mamsavasadi vikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. What you're falling a prey for is nothing but a modification of flesh, fat, and bone, symbolizing enjoyment and temptation. Don't fall a prey to sensual enjoyments. In the fourth mantra, it talks about how unsteady, how unstable life is. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam. He says life is like a drop of water on lotus leaf. The physical body is consumed with disease. Your mind is consumed with agitations. You're intellectually consumed with conceit and arrogance. He says, Lokam shokam cha samastam. The world is smitten with sorrow. So what he's saying, life is too short. And the life you have led is only disease. There is agitations and arrogance consumes you. So embark on this journey. The fifth verse, he gives pratipaksha bhavana to wealth and the name and fame that you acquire. Remember, people will only love you as long as you have a capacity to contribute. Nobody will love you when you have nothing to offer. If I am no position to offer anything to you, how many will be thinking of my well-being? I don't want to say anything. Thank God I've read this mantra. As long as I am contributing to you, you are thinking of my well-being. The moment you are not in a position, nobody would heed you at your own home. Forget others. In my own home, I will not be wanted, he says. Pascha jivati jarjara dehe. If I'm living with an infirm body, vatam kopina pruchati gehe. Yeah, remember that. You are not wanted because of no use to anybody. So be detached to the love and affection you receive. So when you receive that, understand people don't love you. People love what you are able to do to them. Understand that. So when it goes away, you are not affected of this loss. It doesn't hurt you. The 6th, 7th, and the 8th verses talk about your attachment to the physical body, to the mind and intellect. And the famous 7th verse talks about balastavat krida saktaha, tarunastavat taruni saktaha, vruddhastavat chinta saktaha, parame brahmani kopita saktaha. Hardly anybody is attached to me. Everybody are attached to their different toys, whether dead or living. A teddy bear is a dead toy. You're attached to those stuffed toys or toys which make noise. You're attached to your own babies, childish attachments. He says, alas, hardly anybody is ever attached to me. So therefore, he says, learn to develop and cultivate this attitude of detachment. Detachment is to lose your mental value. It is not your possession, but you are no possessive attitude. It is dispossessiveness. So cultivate the dispossessive attitude. And how do you cultivate that? In the 9th mantra, he gives the famous ladder of rise. Sat sangatve nisangatvam nisangatve nirmohatvam nirmohatve nischalatatvam nischalatatve jivan mukti. You want to attain liberation? You want to attain that state of jivan mukti? You want to attain that state of detachment? You got to get into this ladder, the ladder of rise. It starts with satsang. You got to keep the right company. You choose the wrong company, it brings your own downfall. So the importance of satsang, he says, how through satsang you develop a detachment, non-attachment. Then you are free from delusion and leads you to liberation. And then the subsequent verses, he gives you an idea as it is not easy to get rid of your attachment. It's not easy to get rid of your desires. So verses thereafter speak about yet the band of desires leaves not. You could lead an indulgent life. You could lead an obstinate life. You may try what you may, but the desires leaves not. It cautions us. In the 14th mantra, it cautions not to abuse spirituality just to satisfy your own selfish needs. He talks of the pseudo sannyasis. The 14th mantra, he says, Jatilo mundi lunchita kesha kasham dhara bahukruta vesha pasyanna pichana pashyati mudo hyudara nimittam bahukruta vesha. All this is just to satisfy your personal appetite. So don't take to spirituality for that. And then the 17th mantra, it talks about the non-essentials of religion. Kurute Ganga Sagara Gamanam Vrata Paripalana Mathavadan Jnana Vihina Sarva Matena Muktim Na Bhajati Janma Shatena. You may get involved, in fact, everybody is involved in the non-essentials of religion, which is, as he says, one proceeds to meet, proceeds where the Ganges meets the ocean. Kurute Ganga Sagara Gamanam. You perform many vows, vratam, or you may even do dhanam. Or I would, Dashara, I will do this much of charity. Diwali, I do this much of charity. New Year, I do this much charity. So you're doing dhanam in the name of your father, mother, your name of your whatever you're attached to, you want to do dhanam. All of that is of no use. Jnana vihina sarva matena. He says, 100 lives thus. Muktim na bhajati janma shatena. You may live 100 lives performing those meaningless ritualistic practices. You may be doing various charities in the name of your loved ones. You may practice various vows. Jnana vihinaha. Without this knowledge, 100 lives thus is useless. It doesn't give you any liberation. So he powerfully drills that point. Is this not my view? Sarvamatena, this is a view by all schools of thought. So therefore, what's the message there? The message is to use everything as a means to an end, but not as an end in itself. Everything has to be used as a means to an end. And once you rightly use the essentials, then you are established in that wisdom. You have reached a state of detachment, which he captures beautifully by saying, Yogarato va, Bhogarato va, Sangharato va, Sanghavihinaha, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chetam, Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. Doesn't matter once you're established in the truth, whether you are in company or in solitude, whether you are in the spiritual path or apparently indulging, all matters is your mind is ramate, is resting on the higher. Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. Such a person is indeed reveling in peace and happiness. What matters is where your thoughts are. And in the 20th mantra, he talks of the 3 yogas. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita Gita. How much of the Gita you must learn? Little bit. Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita. Drink a little bit of Ganges, Bhakti. Murari Samarcha. Worshipping Murari, Karma Yoga. So when you perform the three yogas, Karma, Bhakti, Jnanam, he says such a person has no contention with Yama. Sakrudapiyena Murari Samarcha Kriyate Tasya Yamenana Charcha. No charcha. You don't have any contention with Lord Yama. Means you have truly conquered death. Death means you've conquered change. You've reached the changeless. Means you are not affected by the world. He puts it in its own poetic way. So again, when he talks of practicing these three yogas, what is the effect of it? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, jathare shayanam, iha samsare, bahudustare, kripaya pare, pahi murare. So then this 21st verse gives the Pratipaksha Bhavana to life. You're got bound by this cycle of birth and death. He says, get liberated. You don't look at this cycle as a bondage. In fact, it's often said philosophically, birth is a devolution. So you actually should mourn at birth, and death is evolution. You must celebrate death. Don't literally do it and get yourself and me into trouble. But however, it's philosophically the attitude. All right. And then he gives the path to the truth. The path to the truth is punya apunya vivarjita pantaha. The path which is beyond punya and apunya. You have got nothing to do with the good or the bad. It's the path to the truth is the path of selflessness. The route you have not to do with the punya or apunya. You don't want to be caught up in the fruits of your good and bad deeds. You take the path of selflessness. You embark on the path to the truth. In the 23rd verse, he encourages us to question, to inquire. He says, iti paribhava sarvam asaram. Inquire, having renounced the entire world as essenceless. Vishwam tyaktva swapna vicharam. The world is a mere illusion, essenceless. It's just born out of your own dream, in imagination, something out of your own imagination. Why are you falling a prey to something which is born out of your own imagination, man? Kastvam koham kuta ayatha kame janani kome tata. Who am I? Who are you? From where have I come? Why have I come here? What is the purpose? So question, inquire into the truth, the purpose. In the 27th verse, he gives the Bahiranga Sadhana, the external spiritual disciplines. He says, wealth should be given to the needy. Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam. At the material level, at the physical level, he says, Niyam Sajjana Sanghe Chittam, associated with the good, the satsang. And at the emotion, that's a physical level. Emotional level, he says, you must meditate upon the worship, meditate on the Lakshmi, Vishnu, the Lord of Lakshmi. And then he says, Bhagavad Gita, Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. The Bhagavad Gita and the Sahasranamam should be chanted, intellectual. So in the 27th verse, he gives the external discipline. Give wealth to the needy at the material level, mind associated with the good at the physical level, meditate on the form, the Lord of Lakshmi, which is Vishnu, And then at the intellectual level, he says, chant Vishnu Sahasranamam in the Gita. He gives the Bahiranga sadhana, external disciplines. And in the 30th verse, he gives the Antaranga sadhana, the internal disciplines. He talks of pranayama, pratyahara, nitya anitya viveka vicharam, jnanam, japya sameta, samadhi vidhanam, practicing and silencing of the mind, which is meditation. Chanting of meditation and the silencing of the mind, which is the culmination of meditation. This is the internal sadhana. So the external sadhana, Bahiranga sadhana, the Antaranga sadhana, and the concluding 31st verse, he says, don't forget your Guru who taught you this text.